All right. All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We will be presenting Recruiting Talent in a Digital Age presented by Jason Litchney. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. This session is being recorded. We will post a link to the recording on the webinar page of our website as soon as it's available. In order to ensure a high quality recording, all attendees are encouraged to mute your mic. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your Zoom control panel. I'll bring them up during the presentation, and we will also have time for questions at the end. Our presenter, Jason Litchney, brings over 15 years of experience in marketing for the public, private, and nonprofit sectors. He is responsible for founding and managing the growth of multiple organizations recognized on the Inc. 500 fastest growing companies list. Jason serves as the marketing and employment branding manager at CPS HR Consulting and helps public agencies brand their organization to attract and retain talent. Now, without further ado, we will turn the time over to our presenter. Jason, take it away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure doing the webinar today. I was fortunate enough to do a live in-person event yesterday in Los Angeles, and I will tell you that after, a number of years in COVID, I think I'm more comfortable in front of a computer screen these days than in front of real people. So it's nice seeing you in a digital space again, and I'll spotlight myself. My name is Jason Litchney. As Marissa gave me a quick intro, I am in charge of talent marketing with CPS HR and have been successful in doing so with a number of different organizations. I have a QR code there on the screen if you would like to connect with me or grab my contact info, and I'll put this at the end of the presentation as well. I know obviously if you're on your phone, it's going to be hard to take a picture of a QR code, but if it's on your screen, you may be able to multitask with technology. And I look forward to talking with you about a number of things that are going on with recruitment. And to start off with that, Marissa, if you wouldn't mind launching the poll here, I'd like to get to know a little bit about your organizations with a few questions. So the first one is just to get an idea of size. How many employees are in your organization? I see everybody's very proficient with Zoom these days, and numbers are rolling in. Also, when we get to Q&A or anything like that, if you have questions, please put them in chat. If you feel comfortable coming off mute, you can. There are about 227 people on this call, so it can get a little bit squirrely if a lot of people come off of mute, but we'll do our best. So we'll just give it another 15 or so seconds, and then we'll end this poll. So thank you very much for the participation here. So as we can see, I'll share these results with everybody so that everybody's aware. Pretty much across the board, I would say, 18, 23, 13. So about 50% of the people on the call have more than 500 employees, and obviously 50% have less. So it's a pretty good distribution. And then stop sharing this one. Marissa, do you want to launch the next one? All right, so recruitment problem. How large of a problem is recruitment for your organization? Awesome, thank you so much for answering. We'll give it another 20 seconds or so. Okay. Cool. So the results on this one, somewhat of a problem or not a problem at all, about 50% and about 50% significant problem, 10% we're in trouble. Hopefully we'll be able to give you some tips and perspectives on how to leverage some digital marketing to solve these problems. It definitely is an issue. So and the first part of this, I want to try to make it as interactive as possible. In the chat, why do you think the Great Resignation is happening right now? I'm sure that everybody has heard the term, the Great Resignation. Why do we think that it's going on? Burnout, retirement, gig economy, remote working options. People want to find their passion, unappreciated, change in priorities, money, work-life balance. I'm just kind of reading out the comments that are coming out. Change for more work-life balance, housing, everyone's hiring, reassessment of interest, COVID, cultural shift. And, I thank you very much for your answers. Childcare for sure. There's a lot of things going on right now that are leading to sort of shifts in employment. I've heard the Great Resignation referred to as sort of the Great Renegotiation or something to that effect. And I think people are just sort of realigning priorities and deciding what they want to do. And there are lots of opportunities out there. So why we're really framing this conversation and talking today is how we get in front of people when life is too short, like Sheila mentioned, and we're balancing work-life balance and passions and what we want to do, and then to build awareness within those passions for positions. And as we think about the positions that you're actively recruiting for, larger organizations, you may have positions that you're recruiting a whole host of a potential classification, right? If you're a state agency or a county, there could be potentially thousands of certain classifications that you need. Smaller organizations, maybe it's that one specific engineer or person that has a specialized skill set in water or whatever it is, building a bridge, right? That you need more of, and how do we reach those individuals? And I'm sure on this call that's going to range the gamut of different positions because of all of our different types of organizations. In the chat, if you could comment in, what are your biggest hiring challenges right now? Qualified applicants, salary, engineers, location. Oh, they're coming fast and furious. Looks like salary is a big one. Upward movement, positions that require licensing, matching cost of living, local housing, obviously inflation type situations. So, across the board, right, across the country, these are all of, and thank you very much for all of the comments. These are all the problems that we are experiencing, right? Every organization, whether it's public or private sector, is dealing with these things that we have inflation going on, gas prices, commute, childcare, salary requirements. Like things aren't kind of keeping up with what's going on in the world. And things have been changing so fast, it's hard to. And how do we get above that? So in my perspective, the only way to sort of combat this is to increase your talent pipeline, right? Because we can't solve necessarily all these problems at the same time with increasing pay, right? There's budgets and everything else that's going to go on to become more competitive in that sense. Changing the location or the structure of how you're doing employment. Obviously, if you have remote work, you get a lot more applicants than if you don't. If you're in a location that's challenged, that's going to be harder to attract candidates. And so I look at it as a problem of what can I affect and what can't I affect. And what I can affect is bringing in candidates to a candidate pipeline, and really addressing that in a short term. And most of us, as we currently work through a recruitment strategy, we look at it as a post and pray situation, right? We run out to NeoGov or whatever SAP or whatever applicant tracking system is that we use, and we put the job out there, and we hope to God that somebody applies that fits the criteria. A lot of times it's also in alignment with our DEI initiatives. And maybe it's a little bit of a LinkedIn play, or, we leverage some job boards, things like that. But for the most part, it's a very passive approach to bringing talent into our organization. And then we're surprised when we don't have the applicants and we don't have the client base or the talent pool that we would have expected. But we're not taking a strategic approach to get there. So I'm assuming most people here throw out in the comments, where do you currently advertise? Or if you don't advertise open positions, put that in there as well. So what places do you use to advertise? Indeed. Local paper, social media, government jobs, Cal HR, ICMA, Craigslist, Cal Careers, LinkedIn job boards, Handshake, SharePoint. State-run job boards. So, I mean, that's pretty typical, right? Indeed, LinkedIn, some job boards, Handshake, and it just doesn't do enough, right? And it's not that the potential avenues don't do enough. Sometimes it's what happens and what's the follow-up look like within those within that strategy. And when I look at recruitment and success, I think about leading and lagging indicators, right? A lot of times as organizations, we just think, okay, we're going to post it in these places. We're going to use a careers in government or, a whatever, a job board. And we are going to, expect success based on action. And then our metric we really look at is applications. And I think the biggest issue with that is that an application is a lagging indicator to me, right? There are things that I can do to control and to optimize sort of that success before we get to the application. So I look at things like leading indicators, social media, job boards, and anything that can give you statistics is great to set the framework of a leading indicator, right? Because that leading indicator is something like how many people have looked at your job post, once they've looked at your job post, what percentage of them click on that apply button? Once they click on that apply button, which percentage of them actually apply? If there's MQs or any testing requirements, like maybe that's a leading indicator or an evidence of success if you have to get on an interest list or have a particular MQ before you get in a candidate pool. So I look at things that I can directly control, and how do I drive traffic? How do I drive eyeballs? How do I drive hits, awareness to those things? There are some methodologies, for example, TV, right? If I advertise in a NFC championship game, I don't know how much actual activity I'm going to get, but social media and most of the places that everybody listed, Facebook, Insta, LinkedIn, job boards, do have direct evidence and these leading indicators on what is being successful. And then, we sort of reorient, do more of what works and less of what doesn't, to get that end goal of applications. Let's see here. And part of all this kind of communicates with your employer brand. Pre-pandemic, I would go on joint conversations with Cecily in LinkedIn. And if anybody's in California area, you may know Cecily is fantastic. And we would talk about employer branding and employer value propositions a lot. And, it's great, but at some point it's a little bit theoretical. So I want to kind of bring it down a little bit of a level and make it more tactical. Because at the end of the day, if recruitment is a big problem right now, it's important to have a consistent message of what you're communicating as far as your value proposition. But that one sentence, like a mission statement thing, I don't believe that it has to be necessarily confined into that. I think it's more important to understand what the value proposition and what is keeping your employees, what attracts your employees to your organization, what keeps them in your organization based on target demographics and potentially where they are in their career, and then to create messaging that reinforces that. So it's not so much I want this perfect paragraph or this perfect statement, but I truly want to understand what is the value, and I want to communicate that effectively. When we look at employer branding and just how you present as an organization, and these are pre-COVID type stats from various sources, Glassdoor and CareerArc and Talent Now, but 28% reduced turnover if we reinforce that employer brand. 84% of applicants say that the reputation of the employer matters. 79% use social media, and I would contend that this is probably a lot higher now, given the fact that I think, my girlfriend and I, we can't even sit and watch Netflix without pulling our phone out and scrolling through our Facebook feed these days. And it seems that that's just how this world and life has developed in a COVID time. And 68% of millennials evaluate an employer brand and kind of what the messaging is out there. And the good news and bad news is that you already have one, right? So there's already perceptions of who you are as an organization and how your employees feel about you, and how and what that message is being portrayed within your social profiles that you have right now, within word of mouth and conversations that employees are having with friends and family. It is already in existence. You might not know what it is, but it's out there. And so what we try to do is cultivate that employer brand, understand it. If it's not in alignment with what you want, figure out how to change it, and really make an effort to approach your employer brand by design. And for each position, look at setting sort of what is the strategy for that recruitment, right? So what are those hiring goals? And I would recommend to really take a look at every position and have these sort of game plans for various positions within your organization. And by the way, we'll make these slides available. I'll have them in PDF format. I can email them out to everybody. So you don't need to necessarily screenshot, but everybody that registered for the webinar, I'll send you a copy of the PDF slides so that you have it. So when we look at, what is a strategy for a recruitment event? What are your hiring goals? What's the volume? Are we talking about an organization like California Department of Corrections Rehabilitation, which we'll get into some case studies for later, that, we want to bring in 2,000 applicants per month for correctional officers? Or are we talking about a specialized engineering position that, we're happy if we just find the right person that fits our corporate culture or organizational culture? What's the volume? What's the quality? What's the time? From a schedule perspective, how many do you need hired this quarter? What are attrition rates? Is there something that should be a consistent recruitment because people are leaving consistently? We're talking about it with a conversation I had yesterday in the presentation. We're talking about, hiring that person that's going to stay 25 years may not happen anymore, right? The world's changed to where we get 5 years out of somebody, 3 years out of somebody, and then the right person, that may be okay. And understanding that mindset as well, and how to continually recruit, because the attrition rates may increase in today's job market. From a budget standpoint, candidates are harder to reach. What do budgets look like these days, especially if it's a difficult position, attorney, engineer, STEM, specialized recruitment? We have to think in terms of what are we going to allocate from a marketing spend to find that person, because the post and pray is not likely to work, right? And then looking at what, the post-mortem for each of these recruitments, what worked, what didn't, right? And so that we learn, and each time a strategy is implemented, how does it get modified so that the next time we recruit for the same position, we're not reinventing the wheel every time. Recording where we advertised, and how and what that outcome was, and what that timeline is. And then as we're getting into the hiring process, part of the strategy is just interviewing and onboarding, right? Can we streamline that process? Even within CPS HR, we talk about, okay, we put out a recruitment, you get 6 great applicants, you try to schedule interviews with 6 of them, 3 of them return your phone calls, 1 of them doesn't show up to the interview, and then you like one of the 2 candidates, but then by the time you circle around to getting an offer to them, they've pulled themselves out of the candidate pool because they got another job, right? And so you're not just in a race to find a candidate pool, but you also were looking at what is the process to stay engaged with that candidate. And a lot of times our processes take some time, right? And so, how can we accommodate or do the best we can in that situation? We heard about, remote interviewing techniques where we can send a digital means that, hey, respond to these 3 questions and record them. And then it goes back to a hiring manager, so we don't have to deal with just a consistent, or dealing with scheduling for first round interviews. Somebody mentioned, what about people just applying to keep their unemployment? Yeah, for sure. That's happening. Although I think unemployment benefits are it seems like they're kind of coming to an end a little bit, where we should have a little bit less of that, but for sure it's an issue. And so the first part about building that talent pipeline is really understanding the talent and understanding the talent in your organization. And how are we approaching that from a strategic standpoint? And I like sort of this diagram as a visualization. On the bottom rung is, understanding the value. So what is that? Like I said, that employer brand, the value proposition based on target demographic. What is attracting your employees? What's keeping them there? What's the brand personality? How should this be portrayed out in the universe to market your organization? And once you have that messaging, it's how much awareness can we bring to that messaging, right? How many eyeballs can I get on it? Because you would say, like, okay, do you think you have the best agency in the world, or you have the best mission in the world? And a lot of people that, are passionate about their position would say, absolutely. I love the agency I work for. I love public safety. I love, working for DTSC. I'm saving the environment or whatever it is, working for my community. And then the follow-up question, well, why don't more people want to work there if it is that amazing of a place? And the response would be something like, well, because they don't know about it, right? They don't have that same passion, and it's not communicated in a way that is getting them jazzed to apply. And so building that awareness and having just an overarching visibility into who you are as an employer, super important. And then once that happens, how are we going to connect? Right? Because I may be aware of you, but I'm not actually going to spend the time to apply that 30 minutes to change my cover letter or whatever hoops I have to jump through, or create a Cal Careers account, or whatever it is that I have to do for your organization, unless I feel some sort of a connection, either personally or with the organization in general. And once I have that connection, I still may not do it, right? I need to be reminded. In sales, if we're selling a product, I think it's something like 12 reminders before you're actually going to take an action to buy something. And yet with a job application, we think of it in terms of, oh, you're going to see a job description, and right away you're going to apply and not have to be reminded at all, which is a little bit backwards, because a lot of times people are probably going to be building awareness, or may even see that job description or that job post on their phone, and will have to make a move to their computer to actually do the application. Because I'm assuming that most people on this call do not have the ability to apply directly for a position via mobile, right? And so you may see something, oh, that's a cool job, but you're out and about, and you don't ever get around to applying when you sit down for your with your computer. So understanding value, we kind of look at, what is that organizational value? What's the personality of the organization? Again, what attracted you to the job, and what keeps you at the job? And honestly, I created this survey. It's pretty simple. It's I don't know, it takes 10 minutes or less. But we put in some negative questions as well, because our feedback was that the survey was overly positive. And so we had some pushback from people that were taking it. But it's become a really powerful tool to identify the key messages that are highlighted by target audience, identify brand personality, and then promote, what is the uniqueness of your organization and impact that you have as an organization. As a case study, we were fortunate enough to help the city of Temple talent marketing, and we're working through a number of things with them right now. We're looking, in the case of Temple, some organizations are going to look more from a diverse perspective, maybe ethnicity, gender. In this case, we took a look at age. And are there any differences between how the messaging should be targeted based on age? So you're thinking more entry level positions coming into the organization, or more of a senior position? What are the attributes and whatnot for those positions? And I know this is hard to read, so I'll just kind of go over it a little bit here. But then we look at sort of what attracts. And in this case, insurance benefits, desirable geographic location, retire benefits, good work environment from an attractive standpoint. And from a keep, again, retirement benefits, number one, teamwork, supervisor, manager, desirable geographic location. So in this case, you're seeing that keep standpoint of retention strategy, which is pretty intuitive, right? If we enjoy who we're working with and we have a good manager, we're likely to stay. If the retirement benefits and desirability change. Bruce, you asked if they change by age. They can change by age. They can also change by ethnicity. They can change by where you are in the organization. So here's, like, from a value perspective, based on white, non-white. In this case, we had to group because we didn't have a lot from a diversity standpoint in Temple. But sometimes the things don't line up as you would expect. The similar survey was done with California Department of Corrections. And CDCR has a focus on sort of the rehabilitation aspect of the prison system and all that, and helping inmates rehabilitate. And from my perspective, if I looked at female versus male, I would think, from a bias, that female would be more along the lines of the rehabilitative, like kind of mentorship, helping, and then the male side would be more of, I don't know, kind of the tough guy, militaristic perspective. The survey actually showed the opposite. So females were at CDCR are sort of what I would put in like an alpha or militaristic, sort of rigid personality, and the men were more into the rehabilitation across the board. I never would have seen that coming. So it changes the verbiage on ads and the perspective of, how we present females, right? As a leader and as, just kind of more empowered of a positioning than somebody that's going to help. And the overall brand is somebody that's going to help, right? And the interesting thing is, when you change messaging that way, we went from 15% of female eyeballs on their ads to something like 38%, which is incredible for a correctional officer to think you can attract that much more eyeballs with that demographic with just a messaging change. And I never would have predicted what that messaging change should be. We also segment based on, types of positions, right? So in this case, management, office, community, manual labor, technical. You see customer satisfaction jumps out, but accountability is also in there. Teamwork jumps in, but in different perspectives, and depending on the organization and the culture, these can be very, very different. Right. And it's important that we don't have one message if we're talking about a specialized engineer, let's say, or in, AGPA or SSM1 or something. So once we have all this messaging, how do we build awareness for the messaging? And in the chat, think of a product, last impulse buy that you did. How were you made aware of that product? The last thing you bought. Throw it in there. We'll see if everybody's awake still. Social media, Instagram, TikTok, email, Google search. Somebody said last thing they bought was inflation. So I guess that's gas. Be brick and mortar. Online research and compare. I don't know, Sean. Online research. I don't know if that's impulse. If we're doing research. Kind of walked up and just noticed it. And so, a lot of us, when we think about, the purchase, it's maybe you didn't see it once, maybe it's a couple times that it's come across. And looking at jobs from an awareness and just an overall talent marketing strategy, I kind of look at 4 buckets here. So we have direct outreach. And that's email, right? How am I connecting with you directly? I have your contact information. I'm hitting you up. Hey, apply for this job. Hey, there's an opportunity out here. Social ads, right? Just social in general. How are we getting it out there in the universe with some targeting advertisements? Job boards, right? Because they're attracting candidates that may be of interest to the job. And then word of mouth, which is sort of your employee ambassador campaigns. With any of these situations, I feel it's incredibly important to direct it to a page that can be distinctly trackable. And so with any of the campaigns that we run, we push them to a landing page. And I think of a landing page as almost a sales pitch for your position. So it's not the full job description. It's not terribly lengthy. It's getting you interested in this job, and it connects to, whatever applicant tracking system or full job description that you have. But it gives you as an organization the ability to directly track not only how many people are seeing it, but how many people are clicking on that link to apply. And so you're gauging interest, and being able to hold any advertising spend accountable. The other benefit to these things is that we enable retargeting campaigns with Facebook Pixel, which is a tracking code that can be embedded, or a Google Analytics code, or just tracking codes that'll follow you around the internet and stalk you, just like if you're looking at a pair of shoes on Nike and it's like, oh my gosh, these shoes are everywhere. I have to buy them because I've seen them 8,000 times at this point. And and then the messaging and the branding kind of presents like this. In this case with Temple, we did a kind of a people-focused approach, as well as a message-focused approach with that gradient fill, staying on brand guidelines, and then also kind of giving it a little bit of a hip look. City of Dallas, kind of similar thing. These are tools for individual like Facebook headers, LinkedIn headers, so that your employees can potentially be an ambassador for your organization to build awareness to work for you. And then, just sort of a theme where it'd be recognizable. City of Denver also does a great job at this, but a recognizable theme that if you saw this consistently, the blue, the green with a tagline, it would jump in your head as okay, Dallas is an employer of choice. Example of a targeted campaign, public safety, a lot of times target military professionals. With CDCR, we kind of came across this tagline of continue your service at CDCR, California Department of Corrections Rehabilitation. And we found that with that survey, when we segmented based on military, sort of the structure was very appealing. And so the messaging, again, is in alignment: leadership, honor, integrity, professionalism. These are all things that I didn't have to guess as far as sales pitch. They told me, right, that this is what's important to them. Continuing service, structure, and leadership was a huge driver. And so let's see here. And this is how this presents.
What if you had an opportunity to change a community? What if you had the chance to be the difference? What if you could make a meaningful impact on someone's life? You can. Join CDCR. CDCR offers competitive paid benefits in retirement. Now is your chance. Change lives. Change California.
And so it's super cool with the video stuff. The voiceover was actually a correctional officer. And so we, it's real. It's they helped with the, kind of the whole theme, gives an idea of what the personality of that organization is. These things, like I said, all point to landing pages that are trackable. And when we talk about messaging, there's always a hook, right? Get an exclusive brochure. I want your email address because I want to bother you. And so whatever I can offer as a method to get your email address is incredibly helpful. For DSH, Department of State Hospitals, who's kind of the mental institutions of California. Again, another campaign. It's a little bit different, a little hip in how they look, and again, connects the landing page. A little bit different of a process with DSH, because our metric here is taking an exam, not necessarily even applying, because the application process is difficult to get on a candidate list. And so really pushing exam registrations consistently is the goal of these campaigns. And once they have eyeballs based on all this sort of pretty pictures and video or whatever, it's how are you connecting with these candidates? And connection to me is really around these three aspects: humanizing who you are as an organization, building that talent database and that prospect database, and events. And those events can be digital or in person. And we're seeing a little bit more movement toward in-person stuff these days, which is awesome. But I think where we're going to end up is somewhere in a combination of both. And all of these aspects, the goal is to create conversations and interactions between candidates and your organization to change potential perceptions, with the end goal of applying again through your ATS. CDCR, I was surprised when I started the initiative with them. I had a very defined perception on what a correctional officer looked like me kind of a thing, and how they would act. And so we did a prison tour at Folsom State Prison. I was happy to say that they did let me out after the prison tour, which was nice. But I was just surprised at the amount of diversity and the types of people that were correctional officers. And I thought, man, we're not doing the organization justice. When you talk to these individuals, you see how passionate they are and how much of an impact the employer has made in their life. And we're not promoting that story. So we started putting together these just different posters, interviewing people, taking these aspects, and then creating that connection where you say, hey, I'm trying to lower the apprehension from working in a prison, right? Because to me, that's why I wouldn't want to apply to that job. And so whatever that problem is, location or pay, or there's a reason why your best employees are with you, and leaning into that reason to find more people like them is, to me, the ultimate formula to collect these email addresses and names, in this case with an exclusive brochure, or create an event like this virtual career fair. Virtual career fairs are amazing opportunities too, because you can do a lot with them. I use Zoom just because I like the platform, but I build front ends around the platform to, again, capture the email addresses and promote the event, cross promote with vision, mission, kind of what's the sales pitch for your organization. In this case with DTSC, we did a virtual career fair for multiple different positions. So it was public outreach, legal, STEM, administrative, and IT. And each one had to almost be treated differently, but coordinated into one event. So how it worked is we had like an overview from, sort of a senior leader within the organization. We had breakout rooms for each of these particular classifications. And then we all came together in one room, in one virtual room, to talk about like the HR aspects and answer any HR type questions, pay, benefits, application process, because it was pretty consistent across all of them. So, just that event alone, it was just phenomenal. Our results look like this. So we had two. We had a noon and a 5:30, so we could accommodate for people that were working, not working, and people that wanted to join after work. Here's a breakdown of of registrants. So administrative, 118, noon, 93 at 5:30 p.m. And you can see the totals there, but 561 registrations for a virtual career fair. And some of these are very difficult, like IT and legal and STEM, to find candidates. And then again, holding that money accountable. So how much did each one of these advertising campaigns cost? This was primarily Facebook, Instagram also. and what's the actual cost per registration. You can see legal's expensive, right? $26, $27 to $27 to get in a candidate in legal, $5 IT, administrative, $1.76. And I had a budget, I think it was like a $2,500 budget around to do the advertising across all of them. And so we'd watch the numbers, right, over 3 weeks and say, all right, we're killing it on administrative, right? We have a huge bucket of administrative, but we need to allocate more money toward legal. Let's shift to legal. Let's pull back from admin. Let's pull in some for STEM or whatever it is. Across the board, we get about, and 38% will attend, 38 to 40 something percent attend the virtual career fair. But that's really not even the goal, right? Because I still have your email address, so I can come back and bother you. I have a pixel code, so I can do a retargeting campaign. And even if you don't attend, you're likely to apply anyway. So the goal is application and connection. And now I've, in this case, for Department of Toxics, with one small campaign, we have a database of, 500 and some people that are already interested in their mission and vision. And so that goes into reminding, right? So we have Facebook Pixel, which is tracking code, MailChimp, which is consistent reminder, Constant Contact, those are just email applications to use, Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager to sort of track and consistently remind. And so it's not just the actual event, but how do we consistently put that in front of people? And as far as results go for application, so the two best results that I have right now is with CDCR and Department of State hospitals. And this is as of 3/15. So yesterday, the numbers, and explain this graph is that the red line is application prediction from 2018, 2019. So this pre-COVID numbers of the applicants that they were getting for a correctional officer position. They were averaging about 1,000 apps when we started the engagement with them. And now we're around 2,000 apps. Those spikes, the 541, 584, 514, those are virtual career fair weeks. So we can drive, and that's that connection strategy of it gives me something to advertise, then, hey, just apply, right? I mean, at some point you're going to become numb to that. And so that connection, I'm going to go to this career fair, I'm going to register for this career fair, I should also apply before I attend, or I'm going to apply while I'm at the career fair. Actually, there's one virtual career fair that's going to start off at noon, so just around the corner here. But so you can see that big change. And we're going to actually next week going to be turning off ads in Southern California to see what sort of an effect it does on that yellow line that you see, because those are based on region, so Southern, Central, and Northern. And I got the go ahead to do a beta test where we're going to shut down ads in Southern and bump them up in Central and Northern to see if we can actually pull levers based on location. Can I drive more applications if we have sort of capacity in Southern, but we need more in a certain location? So if you're an organization with multiple locations, these absolutely can be geo-targeted. Department of State hospitals at this point spent like $4,000 on ads. Again, major problem with police officers, hard position to recruit for because you're talking about locations that aren't great. A lot of the times pays good, but you're working in a mental facility with people that are criminally insane and you're not allowed to carry a gun. That doesn't sound super fun to me, but obviously it's a need that we need to track. And this is a complicated issue because we're looking at metrics of they have to create a Cal Careers account before they register for exam. They have to register for an exam. They have to take the exam, and then they have to apply to the position. So I have to get somebody through a process that is not super straightforward to get into their candidate pool, right? And so each one of those metrics I'm tracking for the money that we spend, which is 15 cents per eyeball to see this opportunity. I get, over the past 2 months, almost 1,000 people clicked on the button to register for the exam. And you can see they're kind of following through that process. And this is where we are as of today. When the ad campaign started, and at this point, it's only been about 30 days of campaigns, they were averaging around 61-ish people registering for the exam. And in April, which is a close date, that 200 is a cap. So I hit their cap a week before it normally closes. And at this point, actually these are a little bit off, but the May number is right now it's at 95, I believe. And June is above that line as well. And July has 10. So, we're tracking for about 350 people taking the exam, which means they don't have to take all the candidates anymore. They can take the best ones, right? Which is going to change how the organization sort of approaches things there. So that's, I guess, the end of my formal stuff. I think we have about 7 minutes for Q&A. I have a QR code there. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, please do so. And then there is a survey when everyone does leave this event. If you want me to reach out to you directly, I'm happy to. So we'll open it up for some Q&A. So if you have questions, if you want to ask them in person, you can unmute or you can throw them in the chat.
I think you showed a bunch of softwares there that you use. Maybe a second training would be interesting if you just went over the softwares and how to use them for the hiring process.
Sure, and really, it depends. So I'll be honest that a lot of the sites that I use and the actual landing pages, I custom code most of the time, but there's also, like WordPress or things like that are handled within your IT department that could be leveraged. But definitely from the perspective of MailChimp or Constant Contact, because I use those a lot to help automate like messaging, right? And reminding, hey, the virtual career fair is coming up. Make sure that you have it on your calendar. Hey, you applied, but did you take the test? Hey, you signed up for this, make sure you apply, sort of, squeezing the juice out of the orange, so to speak. But yeah, I could definitely do that. It's a great idea. Social media advertisement script that's used. So, as far as ads, I typically use 1080 by 1080. So they're the square images, and then the actual ad text is going to be in alignment with what has been determined in the market survey, right? The what attract, what keep. And each ad that I develop has a target demographic generally. And that target demographic can be an overall, organization. It doesn't have to be like women or military or whatever. It can just be an overall one. But I really think mindfully of what I'm trying to attract, what is going to communicate to that, and then lead with that value proposition. With CDCR, it's money is generally the driver. They pay $100,000 with minimal training needed. But if it's location or if it's work-life balance or whatever it is that is that key driver, I kind of lead within the ad. Sources for recruitment to connect to reach specific classifications. It depends on the classifications. we could probably talk about that offline, you know, what they are. I'm just really a big proponent of the Facebook, Instagram, maybe even TikTok a little bit perspective, because the Facebook AI engine really will target people that are interested in that job, and will keep showing it to those types of individuals. So it kind of makes you look a lot smarter than you are, and drive tremendous traffic. Susan, where would you recommend a team start to create these types of analytics? I don't know. If you want to have a 15-minute call, we can talk about it. And I would just really talk about what is the leading indicators. And it can be as simple as starting in a spreadsheet, right, in Excel, and tracking it from there, and then seeing how you can build it from there. I use Google Sheets a lot too with clients, and that tends to work pretty good. Create design. What software do you recommend create design ads besides Constant Contact, MailChimp? So ad design, you have things like Canva, Adobe Spark. Typically I'll use Photoshop InDesign, things like that. But there are some tools that make it a little bit easier, like Spark and Canva. Tiana, housing authorities. If you guys have any real specific questions for your organization, like I said, just throw your contact info in the survey at the end, and I'll be happy to reach out to you. Awesome. Well, I thank you very much. We're at the witching hour. It's a pleasure speaking with everybody. I look forward to connecting in the future. I wish you the very best in your recruitment efforts, and hopefully I was able to give you some tidbits to take home and to help with the organizations.
Thanks, everyone. We appreciate you being here. We will post a link to the recording and slide deck on the webinar page of our website, cpshr.us, as soon as it's available. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.